Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur Enlightenment TV, where I interview entrepreneurs that had huge success or breaks through barriers. I bring you inspiration, enlightenment, and hopefully joy and love. Today's episode is called Resilience, Just Pushing Through, and I have Naomi to share her incredible story of a lifelong of overcoming challenges and pushing through and building this resilience that now she's wanting to share with you. So Naomi, please introduce yourself.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Naomi, and I am the founder of Virtue Ventures and the Tax Pledge Project. Thank you so much again for having me and letting me share my story with you. I'm looking forward to sharing with your listeners about who I am and what I've gone through.
Yes, you told me a little bit when we prepared for this episode, and I was so inspired. So I cannot wait to have this story into the world. So let's start with the beginning. You said that as a child, you had faced health difficulties. Can you share a bit about your beginnings?
Sure. So when I was 3 years old, I got sick, and my parents weren't sure what was going on with me. I would cry a lot, and I would just swell up, and they didn't know. And so it wasn't until I was 7 years old that I was diagnosed with a condition called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And when children are affected with this disease, it affects their bodies differently than an average adult who were to get arthritis. Yes, it affects the joints, but the way that the bones grow is complicated. And so I would go through so much pain and agony as I was a child. And again, I wasn't diagnosed until I was 7. And so I was on regimens here and there and therapies here and there, but they didn't really have uh, medications like they do today for children. And
Mm.
so my life became very complicated back during that time. I remember praying with my father so much for just God to be in my life at that point. And it was really, really, really a difficult challenge as I grew up.
So as a child, when you go through pain, like how does it manifest in your day to day? So were you playing? Were you going to the kindergarten? How
Mhm.
is that as a child? Because as adults, we understand and we do it differently. But as a child, how is that?
So every day was different for me, and I would never know when I was going to wake up and be in pain or I was not going to be in pain. And so I would always tell my parents that, the weather had a lot to play in the part of who I was and how I was, growing. And when the rainy days would come or the snow was coming and the weather would fluctuate so much, I would have a lot of pain. And so, yes, I would go. I would attend school just like every other child, but there was days that I couldn't go to school because I was in so much pain. And, again, it was my uh, faith in God that really pulled me through most of that time.
And how did you gain the faith? It was through, you said you prayed with your father. Were they religious? Like, how did you come to believe?
So my parents and my grandparents were very devout Christians during that time, and so we would always go to church. And I found my faith in God at a very young age. Now that doesn't mean that it wasn't. It was always a blissful paradise, right? When you find your faith in God, there's always the hills and the valleys, but there's that promise that God is bigger than the hills and the valleys of life, and so we kind of always just have to rely on his word to help us find redemption and give us that path forward.
Mm. And you told me when we prepared that you felt that you were chosen to by God to have this. Can you
Sure.
explain a little bit?
Yeah,
How did
so
you come to the
yeah.
conclusion? Yeah.
Yeah, so we all have our own paths and destinies, right, in life. And what I meant by chosen is that God uses each and every one of us for his own works and his own destiny, right? His own magic. And so when I was talking about being a chosen one, we are all individually chosen by him to share with others our message or who we are, the power of resilience and the power of our faith and the power of what he can do in our lives. And so for me, yes, I was chosen as a child to have JRA, which I did not like.
Mhm.
And so I got through all of that, and I became a lot stronger of a kid through that. And
Mhm.
so prepared me for the rest of my journey to where I'm at today.
Mhm.
I went through, I made it through the JRA, and I was able to go in and out of remission from time to time. And
Mhm.
I had three beautiful kids, wonderful kids.
Wow. Mhm.
Yes, yes. And so, but after that, I had a tumor. I was diagnosed with a tumor from 2006, and I wouldn't recover from that until 2012. And
Oh,
so,
wow. 6 years.
yes, long time and 12 surgeries later.
Wow.
So, yeah, so, God was preparing me to be stronger in that sense. So I solely rely on faith to just keep continuing, keep pushing forward, no matter what you're going through.
So
Just
give me an example. Give me something. I want to understand like what goes into your mind when you had like overcame this childhood and then you are faced with this tumor and you're relying on faith. Just for everyone, just give us like what's going on through the mind. How does that faith play in a day to day? What do you do before an operation, after? How do you keep hope? I give you a million
yes.
questions, but pick something that it's not something I can read in a book. It's something that you're telling us that you have experienced.
Sure. So your mentality, it does definitely go through a lot because your emotions are high and low, and why is this happening to me? Why am I being chosen to have now this, right? After I've gone through this, we can always play, there's so many good things and there's bad things that happen in life. And there's, good bad things happen to good people certain times, and then there's, good things that happen to bad people, and we just never know, right? And so we just always have to keep pushing that one foot forward. My mentality was like, oh no, 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 no. I don't want to go through this. I don't want my children to see me go through this. But I kept my faith. With scripture, there is a Bible verse that says, come to me all the time, not not when we're suffering. It's he wants us to come to us, come and be with him all of the time.
So
And
you,
so I
so you
kept
would
that.
pray before, like you would, how does it play in your life? Like you would pray and then feel relieved, or how was your emotion?
Yes, for
The,
sure. So if I spend 2 or 3 times a day in prayer, and it really does give your brain a sense of peace no matter what you are facing. Once you spend that time in prayer, giving thanks, and just spending time saying what you're thankful for and asking for grace, for forgiveness, for whatever it is that you're struggling with, it will give your mind a sense of peace. And so I always relied on that as a little girl, and in my youth, and even after I had my children,
Mhm.
right?
How old were your children when you were going through the tumor part?
Yeah, so 2012 behind. Okay, so my youngest would have been about 12 years old, and
Mhm.
my daughter was probably about 15. And then I have one older one, he was probably about 17. And it
Uh-huh.
was fun. It
Yeah,
just
they
was
were
like
all in
fun.
the teenage year and they were still needing you very much. So
Oh, yes, yes. I
so
had so many individuals came and helped, and we're just there to assist in whatever I needed, because I would go through a surgery and we would think it would be a successful one, and then 3-4 weeks later we would find out it wasn't successful, and so I would have to go through another one later, and it did become very daunting on my spirit. I have to tell you that. There are times in our lives where we just have to sit back and say, okay, God, you take the passenger wheel, because I cannot do this anymore. I'm trusting you to take over.
And
And
what do you feel shifted that you got out of that, let's say? Like, what do you feel shifted?
there is a saying that says, never try to control the controllables, or something like that, right?
Uncontrolled.
Yeah. You can't control the uncontrollables. So I knew I could not control anything that was going on with me, and I had to trust my doctors and the surgeons that were in my life. And it became, yes, it was so daunting. It was so daunting and so frustrating for myself, not only myself, but also my family. And we would go through these hills and valleys and hills and valleys, but we still survived. We were still strong, right? And at the end in 2012, it was almost like a sense of peace that came over, because they knew it was a success. They knew it was gone. And they knew that this time I wasn't going to need another surgery. So, we were so celebratory back in 2012 that all of my surgeries were finally over.
Over, okay. And I know the next part of the story. So you know how they say on the TV, but there is more. It's not fun. But what happened after? How did you get onto the car accident?
Yes. So fast forward to 2017, there was a good 5 years where there was no problems. But fast forward to 2017, I had brought my 2 kids to school just like every other day, dropped them off, and was headed back home. And I was struck by a distracted driver, and I was hit head on. And I suffered a brain injury as well as several other injuries that would stay with me for the rest of my life.
Wow.
So I remember looking up in a hospital room going, wow, I'm here. I don't want to be here.
Here again. Oh,
I'm done. I'm just done. I don't want to do this. I don't want my children to see me struggle through this. And so I was asking at that time, God, why am I here? Why did you leave me here? Right? That's what I was asking. I didn't understand why I was left here. And so it was a very, very emotional time. Because I couldn't put my sentences together. I couldn't understand stories very well. I had to balance and really learn how to work all my motor functions, and everything about me had to kind of be redeveloped. And so that was such a struggle. It was such a struggle. But there was something in the back of my mind that just said, Naomi, keep going. Just keep going. 1 month after my car accident, my uncle went out for pizza, and he was never to return. He was also hit by a distracted driver. So I decided, once I was better, I was going to go on a mission to really find some ways that we could help our youth navigate through what we're seeing in society today. In 2018, I started my research and spoke with neurologists and physicians and EMT workers and judges and so many great people. And I would gather all of this data, and I started this distracted driving campaign. And I think, so I figured at that time it would be a great thing for our youth, just to work on distracted driving, right?
Yes, and you also found it in your purpose. But before we go that far, I want to understand, because it's so amazing. Like after you went through the childhood troubles, and then you had the tumor for 6 years, and now you are 5 years happy, and then you had the car accident. Like that must have been so hard on you. Now you talk to me about resilience. Now give me everything that can help anybody when it comes to resilience, because like I know when there is difficulty, you pump yourself up to go over it, but then another difficulty and another difficulty. That's really, you have to be totally like still resilient. So give me, how did you get
Yes.
to heal? What kept you going? How did you move from the accident into becoming, I see you're
Mhm.
talking today, you're well. How did you do it?
Yeah, so I spent a much time in and out of a rehab hospital in 2017 and 2018. And from there, they would help me, recalibrate everything, redevelop all my neural pathways. But
Mm-hmm.
in that time, I really struggled with my mental health because there was something going on with me that was not being diagnosed. So I went through a couple brain MRIs, and the first MRI showed that I had a traumatic brain injury, but it didn't show the other injury that I had. And so I would go back and forth to my appointments and my rehab, and I would still complain that there was something going on in the right side in the back of my head that I couldn't explain, and it hurt. And so for 9 months, I would go back and forth to these rehab places and whatnot, and I wasn't diagnosed. But 9 months after my accident, I was finally diagnosed. I have something called trigeminal and occipital neuralgia. And so that will stay with me for the rest of my life.
And your
But
emotions, like I'm more interested in what goes through your emotional state and mind.
yes, yes.
And how did you got to walk again, to talk again, to understand stories again? Give me that the inner
Yes,
part that I don't know if it's
yes.
hard for you, but
And
that's
you're
the
so
part.
Yes. So I had a team behind me, right? Because there was times that I did not want to go. There was times that I wanted to stay in a bed and not deal with it anymore, right? And that was it was very depressing at that time because one of the EMT workers told me that when you're in a car accident and you've had a head injury so bad that sometimes you don't know how to act or behave. When I do my talks, I talk about the brain that when it goes into crisis, its abilities are to freeze, to flight, to fight, or to fawn. And so my brain just wanted to freeze. It didn't want to do anything anymore.
Uh-huh. And
Right?
then how did so you said you had a team. Was it hard to ask for support?
Oh, yes.
Tell me,
Yes.
tell me, this is the juicy
They
part. Tell
tell,
me.
okay, that I don't ask for support. I had to go. I didn't have a choice. I had people bringing me to the appointments and back and forth, and they were like, "We're gonna get you fixed. You're gonna be fine." And at first I didn't believe them because I didn't really understand what they were saying to me. And we would have to go through little by little things on putting sentence structures together again. We would go through how to balance myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I couldn't do that, I would have to go back to the beginning step. So every single day we were either adding something or we were staying stagnant so that my brain could adapt and move forward the next time. Okay. So the way that the brain operates after crisis is very different. And after something has happened to it, now everybody's traumatic brain injuries are different, right? And so it's up to the teams to say what level they're at and then how they can help them get back. Now, I froze. I did not want to do anything. I was very, very sad and I was very, very upset. I would cry a lot. I would be so just so emotional because there were so many things I couldn't do anymore. But they brought me back to where I needed to go. And it did take quite some time. It wasn't just 9 months. It was probably about 2 years where I could get my things back together, right? My sentences back together, my story set structures. And I do have from time to time issues that most people will not see, but I do make sure that I have my protocols in line so that I'm following directions the right way. I'm making my notes on what this person said and how did I go about that. And so the way that my brain operates now is more as a savant brain. I am a constant researcher. I'm a constant learner. I want to learn and just know what there is and how to move forward. But I wasn't that way prior. But this shows that we all have the ability to change no matter what we're going through, because it can be such a struggle when we are going through hard times or there's things that are just not right in our life that are just challenging us, right? And so we feel like sometimes we're just like backed into a corner, into a wall, or we're not on the right avenue, right? And so what we have to do is take some steps back and say, okay, what are the things that I can do today to make myself feel better, to move forward in a positive direction, and make my spirit and soul feel better?
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
those were some of the things that I was dealing with and I kind of moved forward with.
Yeah, so coming from learning the phrases again, like to put the sentences together, and I like how you said like to take steps and to take one step further or to trace back and come again to where you were. I think this is such a great way to do anything that we do for the first time. Last year I got myself involved with something that I was totally incompetent. I got a horse and I knew nothing about horses, and
Oh,
it lightened me up because we go through life and we have a competence and we add competences, but to go to a place where you become incompetent in a sense, if I can use that word, like in my case, I was incompetent. It taught me so much, so I can just not even fathom how much you had to go through to come to be able, and now you're offering yourself to the world as a speaker to speak on those issues. So like coming from not understanding stories and putting sentences together to now being a speaker, and I saw your speaking topics. Can you share a little, like, can you share like a snippet or a little topic or something that you would want
yes.
your world to hear and maybe and hire you as a speaker?
Sure. So I talk on many different topics on
Pick one.
emotional emotional intelligence and just being present in our moments. Let's think about that for 1 second. If we're not present in every single moment that we're interacting with other humans, then who are we and where are we? Are you being very intentional with your efforts? And the efforts that you're making when you're dealing with other humans. One thing that I talk about is when I talk to students, they are the next generation. So many times they can sit there, and we as adults can do this as well. We can sit there and scroll on our phones and have a conversation with someone else. But when they look at you and say, "What did you say?" You're not present in that moment. So it's very, very important. And so when you are driving, it's very important that you're present in the moments, because if you're scrolling or you're doing something else, you could really cause someone else you could change their life forever by not being present in your moment while you're driving a vehicle. So those are some of the things that I like to talk about and share.
And do you
But
have like 2 tips on how to become present, like, or 2, 3 things that you can share, like bullet
yes,
points, like this, that?
Yes. So one of the greatest things that we can do is practice gratitude daily, right? So be thankful for the things that you have in your life here and now. It's going to help your mind be open to everything that the day has to offer. It's going to give you a great mindset for the day. Some of the things that you have in life are things that other people are praying for. Most of us have a roof over our head. We have meals provided. We can see on other sides of the sea, they don't have those things right now. So be grateful for every single thing that you have. Another thing about being present is make a list of 3 to 5 things that you want to get done each day. Do those 3 to 5 things. And then if you can do more, then that's great. But focus on those 3 to 5 things. We can get so busy throughout our day. It will give you a sense of a self-accomplishment, and it will move you forward to want to do things the next day.
Yes. Yes.
Those are really great things that you can do to be present here and now.
Yes, I love that. And I also teach something when I do a retreat. It's called Reinvent Yourself, and I always advise people like to look at their life, like to, I don't know what Greek philosopher said, an unexplored life is not worth living. So if we just live life without being present and without figuring out what did we do, what are we intending next, we're just going through life, and one day, poof, life is gone.
Yes.
But if we are to live with intention, with purpose, with a mission, then we're going to think, okay, what was, like, we closed a month, like what was that month about? What were my achievements? What were my successes? What are things that I can take one step further to take your example? And then moving into the next part of your life and say, okay, what are 3 to 5 things that I can accomplish in this, as you mentioned? So living life of meaning, of purpose, and of intention, it's what makes us live a good life and not just flow through life and one day, poof, it's gone.
Yes. Yes. Amen. Amen.
Amazing story. I don't
Thank
know how you've done it, but you've done it. The
Only our
childhood,
creator.
yes,
Yes.
together with spirit. But we have, spirit is everywhere and everybody has at a discretion. But we also want to give ourselves praise for being open to spirit, for being open for spirit to
Yes.
talk through us and do work through us.
Yes.
So you are now creating tools, and can talk a little bit about that. What are you offering to the world now, so people have tools that maybe you wish you had?
Oh, sure. So I do write a lot of ebooks and share a lot of different topics, from emotional intelligence to self-love, things that we need to do in our lives to just be happy. Everyday happiness is one of them. In fact, we can give that for your listeners today if you want to do something, some raffle or something like that.
Yes, we will
Um,
include the link. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but I did found a project for students. It's called the Text Pledge Project. It takes students through 10 of the countries and the globe's biggest dilemmas. We're dealing with distracted driving, discrimination, acts of violence without weapons, and so many more. But we're asking students to raise their mental health, protect the environment, and protect each other's and the animal rights. So there's so many great things. Our teams have developed some amazing books for these students, and we really just hope to, help students kind of change the narrative, I guess you could say, of things that we have allowed to happen in the past by no fault of our own, but just help them navigate their way through society just in a better and a higher light.
Amazing. Now I know why you were chosen to be left alive and fight your ways through your challenges, because you are helping now so many others. I'm so grateful to have heard your story. I had that feeling of inspiration when I talk to you that each day we can go a step further, that giving up is not an option. There is a way for us to push through, to become resilient, and to come to the other end and then offer to the world things that maybe we could have used, or things that we are passionate about. So thank you for being here. Thank you for coming and watching the episode. And I hope to see you next week.